Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to the Q2 FY22 earnings conference call of Moltech Packaging hosted by Motilal Oswal Financial Services Limited. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star then zero on your touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Sumant Kumar from Motilal Oswal. Thank you and over to you, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and very warm welcome to Moltech Packaging Limited 2Q FY22 post results earning call hosted by Motilal Oswal Financial Services Limited. On the call today, we have management team being represented by Mr. Lakshman Rao. We will begin the call with key thoughts from the management team. Thereafter, we will open the floor for Q&A. I would now like to request the management to share their perspective on the performance of the company. Thank you and over to you, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Sumant and Jacob. And thank you all the participants being present on the call and for your interest in our company's performance. I'm very glad to inform you that our company has recorded almost 100% jump in PAT for the H1. Ending September 30th compared to the previous year. And on the Q on Q, that is the sequential basis, Q2 on Q1, the company has posted 45.6% growth in PAT and 30.7% compared to the last year Q2. So overall, the performance is well supported by growth in the paint segment and secondly by the food and FMCG. In spite of raw material price hike of almost 26% compared to the Q2 last year, company could sustain its margins or rather improve its margins from almost 37.2 rupees per kg in the Q2 last year to 42.7, which is more than 14.9, say 15% growth in the EBITDA margin has been achieved in spite of huge raw material price hike, which was 80.16 in the previous Q2 last year, has gone up to 113.5 rupees. So a jump of 34 rupees is almost 45% increase in the raw material price. But we could successfully pass on the price increase to our clients based on our agreements we have with them. And with the better utilization of units at Mysore and Vizag and to some extent at Satara, the profitability has shot up by 30.3% compared to Q2 last year, 45.6% compared to Q1 of previous Q1, that is June quarter, and by 97% H1 on H1. So going forward too, the company has solid plans and expansion projects coming up to support the growth. And those details I would love to share with you on Q&A to have more clarity and specific nature of disclosure. So I now give the call back to Jacob to start the Q&A session.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on your touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. The first question is from the line of Rishabh Kotari from White Oak Capital Management. Please go ahead.
Hello, sir. This is Rishabh. I had a couple of questions. So, firstly, could you help me understand which were your key client additions for the quarter?
Yeah, the new clients that were added are mainly in the food and FMCG. Vikasha Dairy, Swagruha Foods, Kumaran Sweets, Bread Basket, and the Cake World. These are all the clients that were added in the food and FMCG segment. and a couple of them are in the edible oil segment.
Sure. And also, could you highlight on the the contribution of say the top 5 or top 10 clients to your overall sales?
Yeah, overall sales, almost 70% of our sales are contributed by the top 7 to 8 clients. Almost 40% plus contribution come from Asian Paints alone.
Yes.
And the second biggest is sometimes Mandalay, sometimes Nerolac, and sometimes Hindustan Levers. Nowadays, I think it's Hindustan Levers, which is around 10% of our sales. And then going down, we have Mandalays, we have KNP, we have Berger Paints, and then we have food companies like Amul and others who are contributing 3 to 5% to the sales. So the top 10 would certainly contribute to 70% of our sales.
This is these figures are for H1, right?
Yes, these figures are for H1.
Okay. Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. A reminder to all participants, you may press star 1 to ask a question.
In between the participant asking the question, we have a few questions. So can you talk about the raw material scenario for the company? There are a lot of the volatility in the raw material prices, and so what is your perspective on the margin side and the raw material side?
See, if you notice, for the last 6 months, the raw material prices are shot up. From December, where they were 90,000 per ton, they were almost 135,000, that is 1.35 lakhs per ton in the month of Jan, Feb onwards. And they dipped a bit in April, May, but again, May, June. And again from this quarter, that is July onwards, price started firming up. In September, they touched almost like 125,000 per ton. So now currently, actually in the month of October, again, they crossed even 130 per kg. And I think this is the peak. It cannot be worse than this because crude price has not really shot up to that level when compared to what it was 6 months ago to today. And other inputs costs also have not shot up as much for the refineries. But however, shortage of raw material might be a reason that has caused this kind of havoc in the raw material price hike. But I think going forward, things should taper down gradually and reach at least 100-110 range by March next year. However, our agreements with all our clients is based on raw material price. That means even if it goes down, we have to pass on the benefit to them. And even if it goes up, we need to, and they automatically rise in prices up as on a first of every month. Some people like Asian Paints and others, we have 1 month or 2 months agreements. And with 90% of our rest of our clients, it's all based on the price on first announced by the Reliance. So that way we are more or less covered the vagaries of raw material prices. And then coming to the performance, the improvement is mainly because of better utilization of capacities, especially in the new plants, which have been set up at Mysore and Vizag specifically for Asian Paints. And those plants' capacity utilization has shot up. And in fact, we are again expanding those capacities in this current financial year because of the projections given to us are very aggressive and they're in line with what they have given 3-4 years ago, but a little bit hasn't. So we need to start that growth little earlier. So company has taken all the steps to catch up with the demand increase as early as from January 2022.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, you may press star 1 to ask a question. The next question is from the line of Suvarna Joshi from Axis Securities. Please go ahead. Suvarna Joshi, your line is unmuted. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity, sir, and congratulations on this set of numbers. I had a couple of questions. The first one, if you can just help us understand the volume breakup in absolute terms for IML as well as non-IML and across the three key industries, that is paints, lubes, and F&F segment.
The percentage of sale of paint has gone up from 53-54% last year Q2 to 59% this year. Lubes has fell from 23 to 19, and food and FMCG also has reduced a bit from 23.4 to 21.5. So the major growth for the current year is contributed. 48% growth has come from paints, 12 to 13% from lubricants, and around 20% from food and FMCG.
Sure. So this was on the volume front.
You want absolute numbers?
Yes, sir. That will be really helpful.
Yeah. In the paint sector, it is 94.5 crores. Lubes is 30.7, and food and FMCG is 34.5. So totaling to close to 160 crores.
Sure, sir. And how about the absolute volume numbers, if you can help us?
Yeah, volume numbers also are similar, but paint is almost 4,815 tons. Lubes is 1,568, which is a degrowth actually. And food and FMCG is around 1,200, which is also a little degrowth, mainly because of drop in edible oil container sales in this Q2 compared to the previous Q2.
And so this drop in edible oil containers would be primarily because of the rise in raw material costs, or what explains that drop, if you can?
Two reasons, which I last time also explained in June quarter, which is very big impacted in the edible oil is the basic raw material, that is crude oil they import, has gone up by almost 50 to 70% during the last 6 months, and it continue to be high. Now recently government has taken some steps to reduce import duties and make it a little easier for them to import the vegetable oil, crude oil before refining. So that price hike has not enabled those companies to use our expensive containers in the place of tins or blow molded containers. So there is a price hike in our containers also, because we pass on the raw material price hike to them. So what they used to get, let's say at 100 rupees or 110, they now shot up to 120, 130 rupees. So for them, the 20 to 30 rupees for even a can of 15 liter is a big margin. And as it is, the basic oil price has shot up. So they were not able to cope up with the price hike and pass it on to the consumers. It's being a commodity product. It's very price sensitive. So they were, even in the months of, only in October we see again the volumes picking up because of the festive season, only in September and October. Until then, there was a gradual decline of offtake in the edible oil sector.
Sure. So that was very helpful. And now coming to this point again on the volume growth. So if I see the press release, our net revenue has grown by about 34%, whereas in the quarter the volume growth is about 8%. So is the understanding right that the balanced growth that we have seen, that is approximately to the range of 26% is contributed by realization growth, or would there be an element of product mix as well in this 26% growth in realization?
No, the main raw material growth is the inflationary number. The income gone up by 34%, just mainly because of the input costs have gone up, and we could collect it from the clients. So if you look at the raw material price of 80 rupees in the Q2 last year to 113 rupees, it's a 45% jump. Okay.
Sure.
And our raw material generally used to constitute somewhere around 55-60% of our sales. So 55 to 60% of 45 comes to almost 25%. So whatever is the difference between the volume numbers and rupee numbers is mainly due to the inflation of the raw material. And that's why I always encourage all of you to look at per kg EBITDA as a main basis for our productivity or improving profitability.
Right. So,
It's in this
yes,
case
sir.
shot up from 37.2 in the year last year Q2 to 42.76 in this year. It's almost a 15% improvement in the EBITDA margin.
Right. So now, again, on this EBITDA per kg aspect, in the quarter one con call also you mentioned that 42 seems a little unsustainable. Now, again, in quarter two, because of the, increased raw material prices which we were able to pass on, it has kind of come at 42. Do you think that for H2 also we'll be able to match up to this number, or there should be some kind of a decline over there going forward, or any guidance on the EBITDA per kg? Because I remember you had guided that we'll be able to maintain anything between 38 to 40 for FY22. And gradually with the product mix changing, we should aim for 44, 45 rupees per kg on the EBITDA level.
Yeah, I hope you won't complain that we did better. I'm just joking. What I'm saying is, yeah. So what we want to be conservative in our estimates, and this time I would say it's not majority of reason for improved EBITDA is improved performance of our units 8 and 9, that is at Vizag and Mysore, where the capacity utilization has reached almost 90-95%. But of course, the overall company's numbers have gone up only a couple of percentage points. But there, because of the demand from Asian Paints both at Mysore and Vizag, our capacity utilization has picked up. And even other units have supported from Hyderabad or from Daman to Satara to catch up with the increased demand. That's one of the main reasons for improved EBITDA. And going forward, now slowly the edible oil packs are coming back into picture for the last couple of months. I don't know how it will go after Diwali, but and our sweet packs also picked up in the last 2 months, slowly contributing about a couple of crores in this quarter, and maybe probably 4-5 crores in the next quarter. So these new additions and new packs will certainly improve. Our pumps also are slowly picking up. We now added 2 more clients in the pumps division, and we are working with another big client for a small modification, which if it's accepted by them, would lead to production from month of December or January, almost like 1 million pumps a month. So going forward, I think now I can talk about a margin of 42 rupees, or could be 42 for the full year is possible going forward, if the raw material at least remains where it is today. Because if it keeps going up, our edible oil sector might get further impacted. That's the only worry we have. All other sectors are almost agnostic to raw material pricing, because they cannot sell their products without that. Whereas in the case of edible oil, they have other alternatives like metal tins, because they are not completely shifted to our kind of plastic packaging even today. So they sometimes shuffle the numbers. So they take less number of our containers and more number of metal tins, and keep the price differential also, so that people who are more interested in buying at 30 rupees less or 25 rupees less, they might pick up a metal can. So that is the only volatility we have in going forward if the raw material price further goes up. The rest of the things will remain well. And in fact, pumps and sweet boxes are going to add some decent numbers in Q3. And you all know that our Q4 is the best. Generally, the fourth quarter is the best, because ice creams and cheese and all the food product consumption shoots up starting from January. So I think the H2 should be better than H1, definitely, because H1 in Q1 we got affected by COVID in the month of May and June. And that's why Q1 numbers, though they are much better than the previous year, they're still less than Q2 by big 40% or so. So going forward, hopefully if the COVID is under control, H2 should be better. So probably we can look at a 42 or 43 kind of EBITDA margin for the full year.
Right, so that was very helpful. I have some more questions, but I shall come back in the queue. Thank you and wish you all the best.
Thanks.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Akshay Chheda from Canara Robeco. Thank you, and you may proceed, sir.
Yeah, so thank you for the opportunity. So just 2-3 questions from my side. So firstly, if you can help with the revenue breakup and the volume breakup between IML and non-IML?
Yeah, revenue breakup and even the sales tonnage breakup dipped a little bit in this quarter for IML products, basically because our sales have grown mainly in our unit 8 and 9, which are meant for Asian Paints, who are still not into IML. So it dipped from 62% to 59% in tonnage, 66% to 62.5% in value.
Okay. Okay. And so secondly now, so currently we are operating in a very inflationary environment, and if you see all the industries are facing this pressure, be it the gross margin side, etc. So do we sense that, because at least from the numbers that is not visible, because even in such a challenging environment, we have been doing the 42 rupees, that is EBITDA per kg, so that is quite commendable. But do we still sense that there is some pressure from our clients?
See, the pressure from clients, when the prices go down, they take the advantage and we pass it on immediately. So this is an understanding which has been going on for the last 20 to 30 years. So there is no such pressure as established clients asking us to change the formula. Of course, the only edible oil, which is hardly 2 years relations we have with them. And as I explained, they are not really completely shifted to our containers. That is a volatile segment, which I think is the worst has been already seen because the drop was considerable, like more than 20% drop in volumes in edible oil container sales in the last 6 months. So now, because of festival, they are forced, or market may be demanding our containers, which are more attractive, more tamper evident, and counterfeit. So there's again a rise in October, but I don't know how far will it last if the raw material still goes up. But we are not putting all our eggs in that basket because we have many other new products that are being added to our range. As I told you, a couple of new pumps are under development, which may start yielding some numbers from January onwards. We have sweet boxes already picking up numbers. Another 4 new small restaurant packs and packs for butter and ready-made food we have under development, which will be coming into production by December, January. So whatever dip in edible oil, if it all happens, packs, or if it stays where it is today, I think we can continue to do 42 rupees EBITDA per kg going forward.
Okay. And so last question, sir, any volume guidance for, say, FY22, 23? I mean, we did speak about, sir, 35,000 for FY22. So any change there, and going forward, how do you look at it?
Yeah, actually this year we are currently in the first 6 months, the growth is around 26% in tons. But to sustain this may be difficult because this is based on a bad Q1 of last year. However, the numbers are positive, and we hope to close at least in the region of 18 to 20% volume growth in this current year. Maybe 20% is possible with the new products that are being added, if they are added in time, as I'm thinking. So as guided to you last year or a few quarters ago, a 20% CAGR growth is on cards for this year. And for next year, we have actually a couple of major developments that are happening. One is, you all know that in IBM we are making an entry, and IBM products for pharma, cosmetics, and FMCG, we find good traction, and reasonable inquiries are coming in our way. Of course, the pilot project to start would be April next year. So it might not add immediately in the first couple of quarters, but during the next financial year, those numbers will be definitely sizably added. And you all know that the Q1 and Q2 of this year, mainly Q2, got impacted by second wave of COVID, and ice cream sales have fallen again from May onwards, affecting the food and FMCG numbers, which I hope, if it is not there next summer, it will considerably add, because we have a couple of new SKUs developed for Hindustan Levers, and even one SKU for Amul during this low time. And we are in discussion with Arun Ice Creams for about 2 new SKUs. If that also is added, next year we could see a very good jump in numbers for food and FMCG, apart from pumps, which now 2 more new models are getting into production by January, February. So next financial year, maintaining a 20% CAGR also, we are very confident. And in fact, if you notice today or yesterday, I think 2 days ago, we gave a notice for fundraising plan board meeting on 3rd of November to raise some funds, and the quantum of which will be decided later. Because of one opportunity that is coming on our way, which we have been waiting for quite some time, the details of which I can't disclose now. But if that happens, then there will be a sudden spurt of activity and investment in the next 6 months. So if that happens, reaching the 20% growth next financial year is not a big deal.
Okay, sir. Very good to hear that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Rishabh Kothari from White Oak Capital Management. Please go ahead.
Yes, sir. I just want to, could you help us understand your relationship with Asian Paints? So they still contribute approximately 40-45% of your sales. So just want to understand what percentage of Asian Paints containers are actually supplied by us, and what is the sort of breakup of Asian Paints' containers, like IML or IML or non-IML breakup, and what percentage of containers, what percentage of IML containers do we supply to Asian Paints?
See, my numbers will be approximation because I don't have their internal data. But based on my observation of how they share the business volume, Hi-Tech gets maximum volume of their business, followed by Moltech, and then there are another 4 to 5 suppliers for them at various locations. So on average, they have at least 4 suppliers at each location, and we are there at every location other than their north location, that is Rohtak. And we are trying to enter that also through our plant at near Kanpur. Hopefully, it may happen next year onwards. So, having said that, Hi-Tech gets almost 40 to 45% of their total requirement, at least 40 in my opinion, and we Moltech may get around 20%, and the rest of the 3-4 players get that remaining 40%. So let's say they get about 10% each. So we are at 20% of their overall requirement is my guess. And then coming to your question of IML, non-IML, they're completely non-IML. They have a little bit of HTL, but not IML at all. So whenever if they intend to go for IML, then the IML numbers may come into picture. Today, HTL, yes, out of their 20% of the business they deal with us, or say if they deal 100 with us, in that 25 to 30% are HTL. The remaining 70% are still screen printing and BOPP printing, which is, in fact, is not really a very modern decoration. So as of now, IML from Asian Paints is 0.
Okay, sure, sir. So, but like you mentioned that approximately 60% of the tonnage comes from IML
Yes.
products, right?
Yes.
So
IML and
the
HTL.
rest.
IML and HTL together.
Oh, that's IML and HTL together.
Yes.
Okay, understood. And none of the other paint companies are also going for IML products as of now?
No. There are, Berger is having a couple of new brands in IML, and Nerolac has a couple of brands, but not the main brands because of the cost, small cost differential. But their main concern was other suppliers are not ready, and if they have to move to IML, their dependency on Moltech will go to almost 100% as of today. But I heard a couple of our other companies are also making smaller containers of 1 and 4 liter on IML, and that might provoke paint industry to go for IML and going forward.
Sure, sir. So can we expect that as the paint industry moves more towards IML, our role is going to increase substantially even for Asian Paints?
I guess so, because the kind of infrastructure, the kind of backward integrated facilities like making the label ourselves, which is a very big input for the inward labeling process. The label itself and labels availability in time and labels quality for molding makes a hell of a difference for the output of IML production. So in that segment, we have gone leaps and heads above our competitors. So going forward, probably if any paint company moves towards IML, they will be dependent on us much higher than what they are dependent as of today.
And if I may just ask one more small question. So do you have any idea about Hi-Tech's progress on transitioning towards in-mold labeling?
I know Hi-Tech has acquired some robos long ago, a few years ago, and very old news. I have 2 years ago news, or 2.5 years news, when we all met in one of the IIP meetings, was that they were still struggling to control the rejections. That's what I heard, but maybe you guys have better information than me on this side.
Sure. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for answering all my questions.
Thank you. Before we move to the next question, a reminder to all participants, you may enter *1 to ask a question. The next question is from the line of Karan from Asian Market Securities. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. Thank you for the opportunity and congrats for a robust set of numbers. Sir, can you guide us with respect to the capex plan for the current year and possibly for the next year?
Yes. As you are aware, just for statistics purpose, what were the investments what we made till 2014-15 were more than close to around 140-150 crores, whereas the last 5 years of investments are to the tune of 260 crores. So more than 2 times investments were made in the 5 years compared to the first 30 years, mainly because of our widening product range, increasing number of SKUs in our product range, and of course geographically expanding our footprint in 8-9 locations now. So coming forward, we also announced that at Kanpur we started a leased premises to catch up with the time because of the COVID delays, and I'm glad to inform you last month we started commercial production there, meeting the needs of Nerolac. Now Berger is setting up a plant there and they are going into production by next year. April they say, probably June, July, they will certainly go into commercial production. So we also have their word, if not a commitment, that they will also be buying from us because we have been associated with Berger for more than 25 years now. And that plant at Sandoli Industrial Estate has to be set up during the next financial year. Already we acquired the land and other formalities are being completed, and as early as Jan-Feb we may start construction and get ready for production by calendar year middle or end second half of 22. So that investment of Sandoli will be in the tune of 20 crores, about 20 crores, and we have announced our entry into IBM IML recently. That is injection blow molding, which is completely a different line of activity compared to injection molding what we do, but similar in nature. But the wider applications of IBM are mainly in food, FMCG and pharma. Pharma regulated market, that is whatever drugs that are made in India, tablets or nutraceuticals or whatever, by many pharma companies in India have to be supplied in IBM molded containers, with majority of them with child resistant caps. So there are a couple of big players like Swiji and Triveni and Pravesha in this field, but not many of them or others have abilities like Moltech has in terms of mold manufacturing, in terms of getting better productivity through proper processing, which is similar to IM in injection molding. So we feel that our entry into IBM will lead growth for us in the coming years, if not immediate year like 22-23 may not be a big jump in IBM numbers, but from 23-24 onwards, I foresee that segment adding good numbers to the Moltex growth. And our strategy is to have the USB of IBM with IML, which none of these three top players are adopted. Couple of small players are doing here and there, but not in an organized sector. So having the ability to manufacture IML label and even robotics, we will be able to penetrate fast into that IBM and IBM with IML space also. So we anticipate around 30 crores investments happening next year in the land building. Of course, land is already acquired. Building and machinery for the phase 1 of IBM, and maybe part of phase 2 during the second half of financial year 22-23. So I foresee expansion of our Satara, Mysore and Vizag plants, mainly Mysore and Vizag, to catch up with the numbers projected by Asian Paints for the year 3 or year 4. Need another 15 to 20 crores. So going forward next year, the visibility is there for at least 65 to 70 crores investment need. And we are now, as I told you, working on one opportunity. If that opportunity turns around, in fact, there are 2 opportunities we are chasing. If that happens, we may have to make some quick investments as early as June next year, in the next 6-7 months. So if those things happen, the investments could even cross 100 crores in the next financial year. Otherwise, definitely around 60 crores for sure.
Correct. So 60 crores for the current financial year, correct?
No, I'm talking about 22-23. Current financial year, already we invested about 38 crores, and we have plans to invest another 15-16 crores. So the current financial year will end up something like 55 to 60 crores. But if those 2 opportunities which I was talking happen, we may have to rapidly do that even from month of December itself. So if those 2 opportunities come up next year, 55-60 also won't be sufficient. Probably we have to go for up to 100-120 crores of investment.
Correct. And sir, Mysore and Vizag initially had capacity of 3,000 metric tons per plant. So now the second investment will increase the same to how much?
It was initially it was only 1,700-1,800. Then last year it was made 3,000, and now we have been asked to, at least in Vizag, we have to make it 4,500, and in Mysore we are yet to get revised estimates. But previous estimate itself is 4,200. So if they don't tell anything, means we have to make it anyway 4,200. At Vizag, the indication is it may have to be a little higher than 4,200 tons. So overall gain in these 2 units will be at least 3,000 tons.
Right. And how are things shaping up in the pump segment? We did somewhere 4 crores in the first quarter. So how are things in the second quarter? And do we revise our estimates for the full year?
No. Actually, in the pumps, as I explained in July conference call, the numbers of sanitizer pumps have almost come to nil, because use of sanitizers, hand wash has considerably come down even in spite of the second wave of COVID. So the numbers were not so great in terms of sanitizer pumps, but now our concentration was on baby oil, shampoos and other clients of other segments. Both of them whom we are working, one for baby oil and another for shampoos, both are MNCs. Details of which probably I'll be able to talk in the next quarter details. And their numbers are also considerably good. They're talking about 0.7 million pumps per month each. So those numbers, when they are added, as I explained in July, the next financial year we'll see a good jump in pumps.
Okay, got it. And last bit, if I may.
Hardly 1 million a month.
Okay, got it. And last bit on Mondelez. So we were suffering quite a bit in last 2 years. So are we on track to at least touch the historic revenues?
No, the Mondelez revenues have stabilized like what they were last year. There's no drop or no growth. and they are stabilizing their quantities, and some export opportunities to Thailand and Vietnam they are giving us, which is making the numbers steady. And they also have no plans of expanding it beyond current level of 3 million pieces a month, which last 2 years ago was even 5 million. Currently they are averaging around 2.5 to 3 million. Some bad months it is 2 million, and a good month it is almost 4 to 4.5 million. So on average, I guess they will be going at a pace of 3 million per month, which is what it was last year.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. That's it from my end.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, you may press star 1 to ask a question. The next question is from the line of Kanishka, individual investor. Please go ahead.
Hi. My question is 2 questions here. One, can you share some development on the business potential which you are working on from the takeaway restaurants food packaging? How is it shaping up? And how you see the potential in that particular thing, because that's growing pretty quick. And the second one is your new venture, which is the packaging for pharmaceutical industry and cosmetic. If you could give us a little more details about how your discussions are progressing and how you see the opportunity in that. One is domestic, and in terms of if there is a potential to even do exports packaging for those kind of products. Thank you.
Coming to your first question, the food and FMCG, but for the COVID period, the growth would have been still better, because whatever has impacted ice creams and cheese and butter and chocolates and that kind of consumables were very badly affected last year and partially affected this year. And going forward, I hope all this will be our past and there won't be an impact of COVID on day-to-day life. Then the food and FMCG sector will boom again, and numbers can go up. I'm talking about our absolute numbers of food sales can grow at least 25 to 30% in the next 3-4 years. And the size of the industry, if you ask me, it's very difficult to predict, because none of the, I would say, hardly 5-10% of the industry has shifted towards IML containers, and that itself for us it is 120 crores turnover last year. Probably another 100 crores must have been met by another 5-6 players who are there in the small containers business in the country. So it is hardly a 250 crores business as of today, but the potential, in my opinion, can be a few thousand crores, like 3,000 to 5,000 crores, if everybody start adopting more hygienic and more well-decorated packaging products for food and FMCG. You take spices, you take hing, you take products which are of mass consumption, are still coming in labeled and manually produced containers, manually decorated containers. But there will be a day when most of these companies, whoever is in whatever way related to food, have to use IML containers, because they are made hands-free. And decoration also hands-free, and the product is completely compliant to FSS 22,000 standards, which are not really implemented in India. So going forward, if those implementation becomes stringent, more and more companies have to shift to IML food containers. Whatever they sell in the supermarket has to happen, 90% of them in the food side have to be in IML containers. So the scope is very high, but incidents like COVID have reduced the progress and extensive use of IML. But otherwise, the positive side of COVID is it is driving people towards more hygienic and more environment friendly products, because in IML the sticker is also polypropylene, so you will be able to grind the container altogether, whereas a container with a paper label or a sticker will be contaminating the grounded material. So world over, the IML has been preferred for most of the food and FMCG products because of that concern. In India also, that concern is slowly improving. So going forward, that's why I'm very bullish about growth in food and FMCG sector for our containers. And coming to your question of IBM.
So just, can I just add to this particular part, specifically if you could also share, like companies like, Jubilant FoodWorks and all, which is the Domino's, and they're getting into, biryani packets. And so I'm seeing a lot of organized players, even, this food distribution side is getting, traction, strong traction. And particularly the consumption is happening from people who are at the upper middle strata of the population. So my sense is that I'm sure you would have had some discussions with, these people. So in which direction is it going? Do you see that they are open to adopt it?
Yes, they are. Now, in fact, the names you said, half of them, we are in touch with them, and even PVR, even Coke and Pepsi, we have been in touch with them. But last 2 years have been so bad for everybody that they're all keeping this kind of new developments in the back burner, or they're periodically get in touch with us to find out what's happening. Another negative is the steep rise in the raw material of plastic, which is again making them to think twice before they change from cardboard and other types of cheaper packaging. So it might be a challenging task, but the change, if start getting in, the numbers can roll into multifolds.
Correct.
So that will be a guesswork as of now, so let's leave it there. And coming to the injection blow molding for cosmetics, FMCG and pharma, we are already in touch with at least 4 top players in pharma. Hyderabad is the hub for pharmaceutical industry, and our company has various contacts in different companies, including Dr. Reddy's, Mylan, Hetero, Natco, Laurus. So you can name many of them. We have supplied some bulk containers in small quantities, and they have visited our plant. And that initial contact is already there. And our existence as a leading packaging company in the country is already known to them. So when we are moving in, we were always getting some good response from them. And in fact, to tell you very frankly, COVID, though the consumption of medicines has gone up in USA, the consumption of vitamins, nutraceuticals, and other ordinary drugs has come down because people were more worried about COVID and its treatment, and time being they forget about their general health and maintaining vitamins and other stuff which US consumes in bulk. So in fact, the pharmaceutical companies in this segment are not really growing. They're just neutral for last 1.5 years. But one point you all have to identify, and you can do your research, that FDA approvals are FDA approved pharma companies, the number has shot up more than 50-55 from 10 to 22 years ago. So more and more pharma companies in India today are eligible to supply these tablets or the medicines or nutraceuticals to USA. So more and more demand has to emanate. If not America is consuming more, a more portion of their consumption might come from India. So that would be an opportunity which we will be entering into. And I am confident in the food and FMCG, mainly FMCG and cosmetics, we may get better opportunities quickly because we are already serving to GSK, we are serving to P&G, we are serving to Hindustan Levers, Dabur. Most of these companies, Imami, we are in touch with them. They are in some other small way. And Procter & Gamble, we have been associated for quite some time. So all these companies who have needs of either food and FMCG products or healthcare products, which are OTC counter products, or you look at cosmetics in future, there will be a requirement of IBM with decoration or without decoration. So both ways we are setting up our facilities, and we foresee that once we are into that segment, let's say in a year or a year and a half, we will be definitely seeking a reasonable market share, which as it is today, 3G has a turnover of 500 crores, Pravesha has around 600 crores in these bottles. All put together, it's more than a 2,500 crores, I would say 3,000 crores market. So for us to capture 5 to 10% might take some time, but it's not impossible. So we are very excited about our entry into IBM. But as I again said, the numbers will start contributing only from 23 onwards.
Right. So the last question, a quick one on this. I want to know how the management is thinking on this particular part. ESG is a very important factor, and since we deal in plastics, there would be a negative connotation to it in terms of packaging and how it gets reused post first usage. So what are your thoughts in terms of do you see any significant risk to the business valuations, or if where you're supplying, if they get more concerned about the ESG, how can that impact us and how are we preparing for it?
See, what you read about all the environmental issues related to plastic are all around the film and the pouches and the loose bags and thin containers of various packaging products that are used, which are very difficult to collect, regrind and reuse. Two things make it very difficult. One is the film as it is, air or water or anything, and drain it all around and spread that product across the streets or across the streams or even sea. And all this collection of this material is not worthwhile because of their commercial value being negligible. And when you collect also, you won't be getting a cohesive grinded material which will not have a good demand in the market. So what we are talking and listening even in Europe or even in America is one-use, single-use film-like material or thin vacuum-formed or thermo-formed containers or spoons, and even spoons and cutlery are not removed anywhere in Europe. If you notice, when you go to the restaurants out there, everybody is still using them. So what they say single-use there is basically film, pouches, the bag, shopping bags, and wrapped film around the various products like cigarette packs. You see billions of them. They are wrapped with a very thin film, which will never be collected by anybody for no significant value. And then you come to milk packets, milk sachets. They have been consumed billions a day, and those film will be contaminated with milk, will be thrown around. So that collection and that product getting back into recycling is almost, very less. Maybe unless it is a restaurant or a place where they have bulk sale of coffee or other beverages. You won't find those sachets are being supplied, collected. So these are the items which are the main culprits of choking of drainage or causing environmental issues, animals getting affected by eating such film or whatever we all read in the papers. So if you read the environmental guidelines recently given also, they are talking about the thickness of 30 microns to 50 and that becoming 80 microns or maybe 100 microns in next 5 years or whatever. None of our products are less than 500 microns. They're all thick, they are easily collectible, and in fact there is a value. If a container of a paint dabba is collected by one fellow on the road, somebody threw it off using, even if he cleans it, spending 5-10 rupees of his time and water, he will be getting almost 40 to 50 rupees for a 1 kg dabba, because the grinded material is sold at 90 to 100 rupees now. So the collection fellow will get 40 to 50 rupees for each dabba, he gets it. And for a small ice cream pack, probably weighing around 50-60 grams, even if he collects 10 of them, he would be getting another 20-30 rupees. So a grab picker also will not be bothered about a film or a thin material which is contaminated, which is difficult to collect and regrind, is the concern today. Maybe 10 years down the line, what more concerns may come up is something which I can't guess. But going forward for next 5 to 10 years, you cannot live without plastic containers and plastic forms of packaging. You can maybe probably avoid film by going for different types of paper and different types of other applications. Again, paper comes, then the environment, tree cutting and pulp requirements, that will be a concern. So you have a double-edged knife in those segments of packaging. So a film also cannot be completely overruled, but there are jute and other replacements which again have natural limitations of volumes. So it's a real challenge for the film and printing and companies who are in that field, in my opinion, than a company involved in molding.
Right. Right. Thank you so much, sir. Thanks. That was really helpful.
Thank you. A reminder to all participants, you may enter *1 to ask a question. As there are no further questions from the participants, I now hand the conference over to Mr. Lakshman Rao J from Moltech Packaging for closing comments.
So thanks, Sumant and Jacob, for convening this con call, and thank all the participants for showing their interest in our company and participating in this call. Thanks for your time, and you all take care. Good day. Bye.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you. On behalf of Motilal Oswal Financial Services Limited, that concludes this conference. Thank you for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines.